Ever get that quiet, stubborn feeling you're wasting your life? Like, no matter how packed your days get, no matter how many people you surround yourself with, or how many goals you chase, deep down, something's missing. It's like you're just going through the motions, existing, not really living. Maybe you've tried to call it anxiety. Maybe a doctor told you it's depression, handed you a prescription to numb the edge, a pill for breakfast, one before bed, and suddenly days start blending together, dulling out what maybe you should be hearing loudest. But what if that ache isn't some mistake in your wiring? What if it's not something to stamp out, but a signal? Something calling to you, not against you. Carl Jung, the father of depth psychology, believed that what we usually call mental disorder isn't always a sickness. Sometimes it's the psyche's own way of trying to heal. A warning flare that your life, as you're living it, is wrong for your soul. Maybe you're stuck in a routine someone else chose for you, a job that burns you out, relationships that bleed you dry, dreams that don't even feel like your own. And underneath, your real self is screaming for a way out. Only nobody ever taught you how to listen for that scream. Instead, you were taught to silence it, to blend in, to behave, not to rock the boat. So you break down in silence while the world claps for your productivity. And that's where Jung comes in. For him, healing doesn't mean denying what hurts. It means diving straight into it. You don't cover up symptoms and hope they go away. You figure out what they're really saying. Jung put it simply: neurosis is always a stand-in for real suffering. In other words, you're sick because you're dodging the pain you actually need to face if you want your life to change. The longer you keep running, the longer you'll keep hurting. This isn't a video for people chasing distractions. This is for the ones who are done faking it. For the ones who feel like they're sinking, but still have the tiniest spark of hope left, that maybe there's another way. And there is. But it starts with a brutal kind of honesty. You stop running. You start listening. You listen to yourself, to the stuff bubbling up from underneath, to the pain you tried to drown out with pills, addictions, or routines. If you've made it this far, maybe you've realized that emptiness you feel isn't weakness. It's what happens when you're missing from your own life. You know the drill. You've been feeling low for weeks, maybe months. You finally go to the doctor. If he listens at all, it's for 15 minutes. You talk about insomnia, anxiety, that tightness in your chest, the feeling you don't fit anywhere, like you're a stranger in your own skin. What nobody tells you is that the system isn't interested in your soul. It wants you functional. The rule is simple. Keep working, keep buying, keep the wheels turning. Medication helps you put up with what should be unbearable, and that's why it's treated like a magic fix. But as Jung said, that solution is just another trap. Jung believed most of today's neuroses aren't about something broken inside your brain. They're about the split between the life you live and the life you're actually meant for. Ignore what really drives you, your real calling, your raw instincts, your inner truth, and your soul starts to sicken. And since it doesn't have a mouth, it speaks through your body and mind. Anxiety, panic, hopelessness. But instead of tuning in, we're trained to tune out. Drown it out, numb it, get back to normal. But what's normal anyway? A job you dread but can't leave, relationships that only exist for show, empty routines, and a lingering sense you're just surviving, not living. That anxiety, it isn't a glitch. It's your soul saying, "This life isn't mine. You're betraying who I am." Ignore it long enough, and your body will start screaming louder. But the system's always ready with a new pill, a new diagnosis, another sedative. The more you fit in, the further you drift from yourself, until you can't even feel anything anymore. Not pain, not joy, just that steady, dull numbness we've been told is what adulthood feels like. Jung warned that when you just medicate the symptom and never get to the root, all you get is the illusion of healing. Outside, you might seem fine. Inside, you're still lost. Over time, that split between what you feel and how you live gets bigger. And eventually, something breaks. Because you can't outrun your own soul forever. It'll come calling for its price. Maybe as burnout, maybe as a breakdown, maybe as an emptiness that nothing can fill. This rush to medicate is just a symptom of something deeper. A culture that can't deal with suffering, that fears pain, that's forgotten pain even has a purpose. Jung saw suffering as the starting gun, the call to the real journey, the start of becoming who you're actually supposed to be. But these days, every kind of discomfort gets a diagnosis. We're so busy running from pain, we forget that's how people actually grow. So here's the question. How many people are being shut up by solutions that only cover the wound? How many lives are getting wasted for the sake of artificial calm? How many journeys are being cut off before they even start? To answer that, we need to go a little deeper. Look at what's fueling this whole modern emotional collapse. That means digging into the world around us, the culture we swim in, the structures that shape our identity. Because maybe, just maybe, the real problem isn't you. Maybe it's a world that taught you to hate yourself. That's where we're heading next. If you want to keep peeling back these layers with me, hit subscribe. We're not doing surface-level comfort here, just real talk, deeper questions, and the kind of honesty you won't find anywhere else. Ever stop to wonder why so many people are falling apart on the inside, even with all the gadgets, comforts, and so-called freedom money can buy? We've never had more access, info, entertainment, distractions everywhere. But somehow, we've never felt so far from ourselves. The real root of modern misery isn't just in your head. It's built into the world around you, shaping you before you're even old enough to know it. Carl Jung saw this with razor-sharp honesty. The problem isn't just about the individual, it's about the culture, the very structure of the world we grow up in. We live in a society obsessed with the surface and blind to the depths. It worships efficiency, but leaves the soul out in the cold. From the time you're a kid, you're given a script to follow. Study hard. Pick a safe career. Be productive. Buy stuff. Put on a smile for the camera, and never let anyone see you struggle. We're trained to please, to compete, to win. But nobody teaches us how to actually listen to ourselves. Nobody shows us how to get quiet enough to hear what matters, or to even ask, what actually makes my life worth living? This emptiness you feel, it's not an accident. It's baked in. We've been taught to measure ourselves by what we do, what we have, the approval we get. But Jung saw straight through this trap. When you hang your worth on what's out there, you're setting yourself up for a lifetime of disappointment. Even worse, you end up losing touch with your own inner world, your instincts, your unconscious, your soul. That's how the emptiness creeps in. At first it's quiet, just a nagging sense you're off track. But over time, it starts to hollow out your life. You check every box, hit every milestone, but still feel like a stranger in your own story. You know something's off, but you can't put your finger on it. That feeling isn't weakness. It's the ache of being cut off from what's real, raw, alive in you. Jung called this split the root of our deepest problems. But here's the thing. Society doesn't want you waking up to any of this. Disconnected people are easier to manage. They spend more, ask fewer questions, follow orders. They're useful. They're docile. They're predictable. And when the walls finally cave in, when anxiety, depression, or burnout hit, the system hands out band-aids. Never the truth. Jung said that real healing starts when you face down the world that hurt you. You've got to look at how you were shaped, what you pushed down, what you gave up just to fit in. And that's not easy. It means admitting you've been living someone else's life. It means realizing you let yourself get tamed by a culture that's terrified of anything truly human. But facing all that is the only way through. because you can't start filling the emptiness until you see where it came from. That journey has a name: individuation. The deep, messy, transformative path Jung saw as the real road to healing. And that's what we're going to dig into next. What does it actually look like to individuate? How do you reclaim the lost parts of yourself and start building a life that means something for real? It's not a job for the faint of heart. You need guts, and you need to let go. Let's keep going. At some point, you can't ignore the pain anymore. The mask you wear for the world gets heavier until it almost snaps. You start to realize you're living as a shadow, maybe even a parody of who you really are. And right at that breaking point, according to Jung, is when the real journey begins. The journey of individuation. But what does that even mean? Jung wasn't talking about cheap self-help tricks or little tweaks to your habits. He was talking about a full-scale, mythic process where you stop being just a mirror for the world, family, culture, everyone else's demands, and start to become what you actually are at your core. Individuation is the path to inner wholeness. It's the moment you stop living for everyone else and start answering your own soul. And don't kid yourself. It's not a straight line. It isn't comfortable. It forces you to face everything you've tried to bury. Old wounds, dreams you never let breathe, beliefs you swallowed without thinking. That's when the personal unconscious steps onto the stage. All the stuff you never dealt with, the cravings you silenced, the rules you never thought to question. Individuation kicks off the moment you stop running from your rough edges and start pulling them in close. But let's be honest, that's just step one. The toughest part, and usually the most brutal, is what Jung called the showdown with the shadow. That's the part of you you've spent a lifetime hiding. The raw, unruly animal side. The anger you never let out. The envy you won't admit. All those urges you'd rather pretend don't exist. Jung put it like this: those who look outside dream. Those who look inside awaken. And looking inside? It means facing your shadow head on. No sugarcoating. No moral high ground. No more excuses. Why does this matter? Because if you ignore your shadow, it runs the show behind your back. But if you can face it and fold it into your life, that's where real power, real truth, real energy comes from. You finally stop battling yourself and start living as a whole person. That's individuation. Pulling your scattered parts back into one center. Reconnecting with the core of who you are. What Jung called the self. The center of gravity that makes you. You. Here's the big twist. While the whole world is obsessed with self-improvement, Jung's message was simple. Stop trying to be perfect and start being whole. Not more polished, just more real. Not better at fitting in, but free to actually live. The healing you're after isn't about playing by the world's rules. It's about syncing up your insides with the truth of who you are. That road gets lonely, sometimes ugly, but it's also the only one with real meaning. When you live from your center, everything shifts. The way you make choices, the way you handle pain, even the way you suffer starts to change. It stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like the fire that transforms you. But then you have to ask, why do so many people never take this path? Why do most stay numb, stuck on repeat, dodging any real look inside? The answer goes right to the heart of modern misery, a silent epidemic eating people alive, even if they look fine on the outside. That's what we need to dig into next. Maybe your pain isn't some flaw. Maybe it's the signal that your life, up till now, never had a real purpose. And that can, and has to, change. Take a look around. How many people do you know who seem to be sleepwalking through their days? How many go through the motions, same routines, empty distractions, and a kind of bone-deep tiredness that no amount of rest can fix? Jung saw this for what it is. This suffering isn't some accident, and it sure isn't just bad luck. It's baked into the structure of modern life. Underneath it all, the real crisis is simple and hard. Life has lost its meaning. And we're not talking about some giant cosmic mission or a fairy tale happy ending. We're talking about the gritty kind of meaning, a sense of real purpose, of living in line with who you actually are, not what the world says you should be, not living to hit someone else's idea of success, but actually living from a place that feels true. Jung noticed something in his patients. When people started living with purpose, the worst symptoms often faded, not from meds, not from money, but from finding a reason. Because you can bear almost any pain if you know why it's worth it. But take away that why, and even the best moments feel empty. That's the epidemic we're facing. Emptiness everywhere. People exhausted, not because they're doing too much, but because nothing they do means anything to them. Lives crammed with obligations, starved for direction. Jung knew that people need to feel like they matter, that their existence has weight. Without that, they fall apart inside. Suffering becomes a fog you can't escape. The soul starts looking for a way out, but all the world offers are quick fixes. Another show to binge, another like, another hack to boost your mood. It's all noise, trying to plug a hole that only truth can fill. And that truth? Most folks are living lives they never really chose. They got pushed into tracks to please other people, never themselves. Picked jobs that had no soul, stayed in relationships that wore them down, lived in cities that smothered them, followed routines that erased who they were. And their bodies feel it. Their minds snap. Their souls shrink. There's no pill for a lack of meaning. What's missing isn't a neurotransmitter, it's direction. Not dopamine, identity. This is where Jung's ideas cut the deepest. He wasn't out to just patch people up so they could keep grinding away. He wanted them to actually live, to have the guts to say, "This life isn't mine. I'm not doing this anymore." But how do you even start? How do you claw your way back to meaning when the world keeps pushing you away from your own center? Jung pointed to one thing: reconnect with the unconscious. That's where your missing purpose is buried, in the pieces you forgot or were told to throw away. And that's exactly what's coming next. How your unconscious isn't just some dark closet of old trauma, but could be the best ally you've got in finally living for real. Because the stuff you keep running from might be the very thing you need to wake up and live with meaning. If you want to get real about what's holding you back on the inside, check out my video series, Jungian Psychology Decoded. I break down Jung's core ideas and show you how to use them to break the chains of your own mind. No fluff, just honest tools for real change. Find the link in the pinned comment. Everybody wants to heal. Almost nobody wants to pay the real price for it. Because real transformation doesn't start with positive thinking or some shiny new habit. It starts with a fight, a free fall, a straight plunge into the depths of your own soul. That's what Jung was talking about. You don't get true healing without facing your unconscious. But what is this unconscious really? To Jung, it wasn't just a closet full of old memories or buried pain. It's a vast, wild universe, packed with every part of you that's been pushed down, locked away, or forgotten. Your rawest instincts, your oldest fears, the stuff that stings the most. All of it's there, waiting in the dark. And here's why it matters. What you don't face in the unconscious will end up running your life without you ever seeing it. Jung said it straight. What you do not bring to consciousness returns as fate. You think you're unlucky in love, but you keep repeating the same mess. You think you're cursed at work, but you're actually scared of your own success. You think the world's always against you, but it's old wounds driving your choices, and you never see it coming. The unconscious is a dark mirror. It shows you the unedited version of yourself, not the image you like to show the world. And that's why it's scary. It exposes the cracks in your mask, the places you pretend don't exist. It forces you to drop the story of control and admit just how complex you really are. But here's the catch. The very thing you're dodging is where healing starts. The more you deny what's down there, the more it takes over your life. You get more reactive, more scattered, more out of control. But if you find the guts to face it, if you start pulling those hidden pieces back in, you actually become whole. Jung called this the expansion of consciousness. It only happens when you quit running and start listening. How do you even do that? You start by paying attention to dreams, symbols, art, silence, meditation, therapy. The unconscious doesn't talk in logic. It speaks in pictures, gut feelings, weird flashes, stuff that seems to come out of nowhere. But it's not nothing. It's you. It's the parts of you you buried, finally trying to be heard. When you start listening, something shifts. You see yourself more clearly. You stop repeating old patterns. You start taking your power back, because until you know what lives inside you, you're just a hostage to your past, to other people, to everything you never questioned. But when you finally dive deep, when you meet your own unconscious, you get a shot at freedom. You realize the anxiety that cripples you isn't just an enemy, it's a warning flare. That sadness that haunts you isn't just weakness. It's the signal that something has to end, so something real can begin. This isn't easy. It takes time. It takes patience. It means leaving the shallow end of life and diving into deep water. But it's the only path to something real, to rebuilding yourself from the inside out. That's how you stop being a puppet and start becoming the author of your own story. Now, knowing all this, there's still one big question. What's actually stopping you from taking the first step? Why do so many people, even when they know better, just stay frozen, going through the motions, living on autopilot, repeating the same empty day? The answer is simple and brutal. Fear. Fear of what's new. Fear of letting go of what's familiar, even when it's killing you. And that's exactly what we'll dig into next. The hardest and most freeing decision you'll ever make. To stop living numb and start waking up. Because at the end of the day, you've got two options. Stay anesthetized or wake up. There's no halfway. There comes a moment when you have to make a choice. Not just any choice, the choice. The moment that separates who you really are from who the world tried to make you into. The moment you decide whether you're going to keep living on borrowed time or finally make a real promise to yourself to show up for your own soul. If you've made it this far, it's not a fluke. Something in you is waking up. Maybe it's a whisper. Maybe it's a full-on scream. Either way, it's there, and it's not going away. It's the part of you that refuses to believe life is just about work, obligations, background noise, and survival. The part that knows, even if it can't put it into words, that there's more waiting for you, but only if you have the guts to chase it. Jung said the greatest privilege is becoming who you really are. But he knew it's the most avoided road, because it asks you to leave behind everything safe and familiar. It wants you to face the fear, wrestle the shadows, question the stories you were raised on. That's why this path is sacred, because it shatters, but it heals for real. Most people won't do it. They'll keep living on mute, collecting stuff, chasing distractions, racking up likes, but dying quietly on the inside. That doesn't have to be you. You can choose different. Choose to stop wasting your time here. Choose to snap out of numbness. Choose to build a life that means something. A life that's actually yours. I'm not saying it'll be easy. It'll hurt. It'll get messy. You'll lose people, but you'll get free. And there's nothing on this earth more powerful than a soul that's finally awake. When you start living as who you really are, you can't be shaken. You stop needing approval. You stop playing small. You stop giving yourself away just to please people who'll never get you. So, here's the question. What do you have to let go of to start really living? What's the lie you're still clinging to? Drop it in the comments. One sentence, one question, one confession. Just writing it down is a step out of sleepwalking. It's a signal to yourself. You're here, you're choosing, you're waking up. And if this video cut through, if it stirred something raw or real in you, don't stop here. Watch the next one. Not just for continuity, but because you're ready to go deeper.